Hi, thanks for tuning in to Lloyd TV. Today we're going to be reviewing the new Dungeons & Dragons kit that came out, crossover with Stranger Things, Hellfire Club. We're going to be focusing more on the negative in this one just because there's so many videos out that focus on the positive. And I would say the positive are really obvious what they're doing right. You got a lot of the good artwork here, very beautiful. They did a great job of getting that 80s vibe for the most part. But there are some definite problems. It's a souvenir kit. It's something you should buy if you're a dungeon master, if you love Stranger Things, if you're really interested in this old vibe. But as for an engine that runs, this thing it's a gremlin. Like you have to patchwork it to make it work. It's really beginner, and it's not. To me, it does not feel like one of Eddie's campaigns. Honestly, it feels like one of Will's campaigns that they then slapped on some metal. Feels like Kids Bop metal to me. It's not full Eddie. And there are just some issues with it. Like, take for example the character sheet. This one that's really jumped out at me. So, you see this really tiny, hard to read font right here, and it's actually over graph. So it's even harder to read. And it's tiny font, almost like handwriting, except it's computer handwriting, so all the handwriting is the same across the board. What they should have done is you should just have the blank sheet with all the information, and then you just have the characters fill it out with their own handwriting. That way it's not the same corporate font all throughout. And then, okay, this really pissed me off a little bit. Alright, seeing test. You're about 6 feet away from this. Can you tell what that is? This is an enemy token. Can you tell what enemy that is? Let's say you're sitting across the table. Can you tell? You see a little blur. A little closer? Okay, so you got to be like 1 foot away to tell that is a goblin. So they should not have gone for black and white for the enemy tokens. This does not work when you're on the board. Players are sitting back from the map. When they're looking over, they might be sitting this far away and looking over there. And what they're going to be looking for is shapes and colors to quickly tell the tactical setup of what's going on there. Unless, the battle is so simple it doesn't even matter, where they are. But black and white was not the place to do this. The place for the black and white is in the manual. That is where you should have the beautiful black and white artwork. And this is what they're doing right. This is absolutely beautiful. But it did not work right here, and it especially does not work on the cards. So why do we have black and white in books? We have it because it's cheaper to print. If we can print color, we print color. This right here, it's color. You could tell. That's purple. But then you got this very de-emphasized picture in the middle. You kind of got to zoom in to see what it is. And it's just like drawing a circle around black and white art and making it look really black and white because you have the color around it. I mean, it's just... If you're going to have color, have color. If it's got to be a black and white card, have it be a black and white card. People need to look at it quick and say, this is that is that is that, so they can focus on other stuff. And for that, you need clear, identical visual markers. And then, what made me really think this was Will's campaign is just some of the names that come up. It's just very silly names. I think it's Flitzbin, Flizzlebin, the Vanishing Gnome. Yeah, that sounds straight out of Will's campaign. That's what that sounds like. Flizzlebin. I don't think that's something Eddie would have come up with. It works, it works, but... And then, here's the other thing that pissed me off. So, I always like handouts. Handouts are great. We love handouts, anything physical. I use gold coins, counters and everything. Little notes like this that they're passed a note. Right here. But, Gen Z, this is Greek, too. They cannot read a single fucking word on this sheet. It is in cursive. They can't read cursive. Cursive is Latin to them. So anytime you're going to have cursive or handwriting, you need to have plain text as well. You see this in video games like Last of Us Part 2. You pick a handwritten note, you press a button, suddenly you have the plain text so you can read it easy. Anytime you have to force your brain to read this kind of handwriting, it doesn't add to the immersion. You see at first, okay, it's handwritten, that's what it looks like, it adds to the immersion, but you have to actually read the note and understand what's on the note. So it's just barriers to imagination. That's as I see that. You do get a nice little combat tracker, but the best way to track combat is little tags on the top of your DN screen. We all know that. And then you get pretty good enemy cards. I'm always a fan of enemy cards. I've never played an enemy just as written. I always have like, my notes and everything, but if you're just playing them straight, it's nice to have those cards there. These are well done, but you do get the same issue. There's Flizzlebin. Flizzlebin. Ah, I'll suck your cock for $7. Be a coupon. I'll do it for $3.50. Flizzlebin. Alright, so that's Flizzlebin. But yeah, it's the same black and white against what you already have color, so that doesn't make sense. And then the dyes are pretty good. The dyes are good. Red dye. I have the D20 I was using on the other video. But what I always like in a dye is if it has very clear numbers to read. Again, it's like, interpreting things at a glance. If you can read it quickly, it's less brain processing time, and then you're able to imagine more. So I like to just read quick, have nice bright white painted letters. The fancy metal dice where you gotta like stare at it to see if it's a 6 or a 5, But yep, all in all, I think it's a good enough kit. It passes muster. It's a good souvenir. It's not gonna be out forever. And of course, the crown jewel of the whole thing. It's just worth paying the $50 for. This, I'm just gonna start. We'll do a panorama here. Yeah, I'm using this next time. You betcha. I'm gonna change out the all the stuff on the inside though, but yeah. So that itself is worth it. That is, it's beautiful. It's human art. Let's support human art when we can. But all in all, this doesn't feel to me like the Eddie that I know. It feels like Kids Bop Metal. And I just want to take a moment, I think I had my notes over here, to talk about who Eddie was. Kind of put ourselves in the mind of Eddie. Try to figure out what kind of campaign his homebrew campaigns would look like. What kind of campaign would he have made that they would have been playing that led up to that Vecna fight? Because I don't think it would have been a simple module. Eddie's the guy who would have done homebrew. He would have figured it out. So let's travel back in time. 1986. What was going on in the world? We're coming out, this is the tail end of the Reagan era. And the moralists are strangling the American youth, right? Like, oh, metal is evil. They got the PMRC hearings, a bunch of televangelists getting on in the courts and really pushing restrictions on the kind of music that Eddie embraced. The kind of individual, loud rock. And he would just see it and he was just like, I know it's bullshit. I know you're full of bullshit. You think I'm a Satanist? No, fuck Satan. I don't worship Satan. I just, I explore things outside of the bounds of civilization, right? He would have seen the Cold War anxiety, that's coming back real heavy in the 80s with Russia in particular. You got the institutional authority on steroids, the church, the school, the police, media, they're all aligned. They're coming down really heavy on the youth. And of course the economic divide was widening. You see the small towns hollowing out, and you see this in season 3 with the introduction of the mall. The small shops are closing, the mall's taken up, so everyone's going corporate. And he would have looked around his town, and he would have seen what was going on. It was being run by people like the Princess Bride guy, the mayor in season 3. He just out for greed. Just they speak with absolute moral superiority, but these guys are raking in cash behind closed doors, and he knows they're full of bullshit. Adults who panic instead of listen. Anything that's different is automatically evil. They burn anything they don't understand, and it's just, he saw this, and he would be drawn toward anything that was the exact opposite. He would be drawn to the outcast, to the chosen family, not the family that rats you out and bullshits you all the time. Art that scares adults, remember. Art should comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable. He'd be drawn to intensity, commitment, and of course D&D. Because at D&D, the table, everyone matters. All the misfits, all the weird-looking kids in the Hellfire Club, right? They learn that you have to be smart to beat the strong enemy. Brains beat brawn. That's how David beat Goliath. Cleverness beats cruelty. And he would have been drawn to metal because its name's the rage instead of trying to brush it under the carpet. It's like, I'm angry and I'm going to say I'm angry. I'm going to do it artistically. So, what would his homebrew have looked like? Well, he would have had authority figures who are suspect. He would have had kings that lie, priests that are compromised, sheriffs that protect the wrong people. He would have had empires that fall, corrupt systems, lawful not being the same as good. He had to find that nuance, Monsters are rarely born, they are made. War makes them, fear feeds them. He would have had campaigns where the party matters more than the crown. When the crown begins to rot, you choose loyalty to your friends over law, choice over destiny, sacrifice over glory. And victory is never clean. Someone always pays for it. Someone is always lost. Just like Eddie himself, after Master of Puppets, drawn into a swirl of bats that tore his heart to pieces. He was a hero. And honestly, I'm glad they didn't drag him back from the dead in season 5. Season 4 was his season. In that spirit, I'm going to play a little original piece that I wrote last week when I was pissed off about something. It's a little bit inspired by a TV show, in fact. See, Stranger Things is the 3rd greatest TV show ever made, in my opinion. Second, Breaking Bad. The first, The Wire. I'm in agreement with our former president on that. And in The Wire, in the 5th season, they kind of focus on the institutional problems in journalism, particularly the Baltimore Sun, and kind of in journalistic integrity and all that. And there's this one character who is a journalist, and he goes out in the streets, and he tries to get an interview, but he can't. So he makes up an interview. He gets a sense of what's going on, so he essentially writes a short story and passes it off as journalism. And he's rewarded for it. They challenge him, but he rises through the ranks, and he's rewarded for essentially bullshitting his way through journalism. And I see that basically as Fox News in a nutshell. Save my number, sell it to the paper, find out the facts and make them up later. Home by the man who wears by the bars, hypnotized by a screen that knows all your thoughts. Hypnotized by a screen that knows all your thoughts. But there you browse, there in your bed, rumble in your heart, rattle in your head. Go by the stage, run by the bars, learn a thing or two when you're watching Fox. But only a thing or two. But only save by number, sell it to the paper, find out the facts and make them up later. Home by the man, wears by the walls, entertained by hate when you're watching Fox. I call that one Fox. Bunch of mouth breathers over there, for which I invented the triple flip-off. Alright. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Rock on, and fuck the man.